Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is, what day is it today? Friday. There you go. All today's guests brought to you, that includes Vince Mercogliano standing by, brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. Escape to the Bayside, ideal mid-island destination. For a relaxing weekend getaway, enjoy comfortable accommodations, ocean views, exceptional service. Book your stay today at Bayside.ResortParksville.com. Man, am I getting criticized in the Delaney OK Tire and Langley inbox?
Why?
Well, apparently I didn't graduate Hockey 101 regarding the Canucks' overtime loss last night, what happened on the winning goal. All right, Rangers and Canucks tomorrow, 10 o'clock Pacific from Madison Square Garden. We're joined now by New York Rangers reporter for USA Today and LowHUD.com, Vince Mercogliano. Vince, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Doing all right, guys. Just got back from practice, so you caught me at a good time.
Okay, we understand that JT Miller is going to be going out for dinner tonight with some of his old Canuck teammates. Vince, a proposition for you. Is there any way you can plant a microphone at the table that JT Miller will be at tonight? And, if the conversation is juicy, we'll pay up.
Yep.
We'll buck up for that.
Big bucks.
I wish I had that kind of power, guys. I don't think I can pull that one off for you.
Did anybody ask or find out who would be at the dinner tonight by any chance?
I kind of was thinking about it afterwards. No, nobody asked. JT was, I don't think this is his favorite topic of conversation, if I'm being honest, as you guys might imagine.
Yes.
I think he was, as soon as the questions kind of slowed down, I think he took the opportunity to get out of there, which is, I think somewhat understandable. I will say, since he's been in New York, he's been really approachable. I had a long sit-down interview with him last week where I thought he was really open and honest and forthcoming. But I think that he knew that the questions were going to be swirling going into this game against the Canucks, his first time, obviously, seeing them since the trade. And I think, at one point he mentioned not wanting to fall in any traps. I think he was not looking to divulge too much and certainly didn't want to make too big a deal out of it and certainly did not want to rehash old history. So I got the sense today that he wasn't looking to share a whole lot. He said some very nice things about the Canucks. I will say that. He put out there how much it meant to him and how, he raised his family there and his family loved it there and the fans were really good to him. And obviously his career took off there. He touched on that when he was with the Rangers during his first stint, he really wasn't ready to be a winning player at that point, is kind of the way that he described it. And then when he went to Tampa, they were so deep that he was looked at as more of kind of a depth, a role player, and never really got the opportunity to get consistent top six ice time. And he was very grateful that the Canucks gave that to him. And obviously, we saw the production there, 3 straight seasons with 82 points or more, including 103 last year. And his career, in a lot of respects took off. I think the way that he's viewed around the league as a legitimate number one center, as a premier center in this league, definitely took off in Vancouver. And I think for all those reasons, he has a lot of warm feelings toward the organization, despite how things ended. So he said some really nice things. And he said he was going to go out with some teammates to dinner tonight, or some former teammates. And he said that they know that they can have some fun tonight, but by the time they get tomorrow, the way he described it was it's going to be a war. So I think he's expecting it to be a very competitive game. I'm sure he's going to have some extra juice for it, but he didn't really want to, go too deep with those questions when he was asked, if he looked at it as a payback game or anything like that.
Great start for JT with the New York Rangers, back with the New York Rangers, but he's tailed off. 0 goals in 9 games. What's your take on what you've been seeing lately from JT?
Yeah, I think when he got here, he was a dose of exactly what the Rangers needed. The Rangers, I think, have struggled to play a more direct, a more physical game. They have a lot of guys who are more skilled, more finesse, more perimeter players, and I think Chris Drury has really been searching for somebody who would stick his nose into the fray a little bit more, do a little more damage from the high danger areas, not back down, kind of bring more of that attitude that you guys, I know, in Vancouver saw when JT was at his best. And early on, he was like a breath of fresh air here. He brought a ton of energy to this lineup. He really was playing with a mean streak, but harnessing it in a very effective way, where he was well over a point per game for a good stretch here when he first arrived in New York. But I do think it's tailed off recently. The whole team has not played well of late. They've lost 7 of their last 9, and I do think it's asking a lot for a player like Miller, who's a very good player, but he's not the type of guy who I think is going to be able to carry a team on his own. I think there are very few in the league who are capable of doing that. But one thing I was actually talking to somebody about earlier today that I think is a valid point. Obviously, it was a lot of drama and a lot of stress and a lot of pressure and even off-ice stuff that was going on at the end of his time with Vancouver. He's talked about how much that weighed on him and how he wasn't really having a lot of fun at the end of his tenure there. Then he gets traded to the Rangers. It's a whirlwind. He comes in playing his butt off and having some early success with them. And I think really trying to be the engine for this team, really trying to will this team to playing a more competitive brand of hockey, playing with that chip on his shoulder. And I mean, he was giving it his all every single shift, I think, trying to make an impression, trying to show the Rangers that they made the right decision in trading for him. Then he goes to Four Nations, competes for Team USA, so he doesn't get to take any kind of a break. He's just been go, go, go since he got here. And he hasn't said this. This is just me connecting my own dots. But you have to think at this point, he's got to be running on fumes. Those legs have to be getting heavier. He has not been nearly as effective inside of this last, like you said, 9 games that he hasn't had a goal. 3 straight games now without a point. I have to feel like his gas tank is probably pretty low right now. Again, he has not said this. I just feel like given everything that's going on this season, changing teams on the fly, competing in Four Nations, I think for him to sustain the level of play that he had when he first got to New York would have been very, very difficult. This team is in a play. Every game is so meaningful to them right now. And I think a lot of guys on the team, the candles are starting to burn pretty low. And I feel like he might be falling into that category right now.
Vince, one player the Canucks got in the Miller trade was Chytil. He's out with a concussion right now. What's his concussion history with the Rangers that you know about?
Well, the Rangers have not been the most forthcoming about this over the years. I did find it somewhat refreshing to see that the Canucks actually labeled it a concussion, because the reality with Chytil when he was in New York, we knew that he had multiple concussions. I through reporting last season, talking to multiple sources, have concluded that I think in his time in New York, he had at least 4 concussions, some of those more severe than others. And I know that some of them, last season, he was out for 72 regular season games and missed some time in the playoffs. So it seemed like with each concussion, the symptoms were worsening and he was having a tougher time getting back on the ice. It really is a scary, kind of sad situation, because in my 6 years covering the team, I don't know if I covered a player who cared more or put as much work in behind the scenes as Chytil. He's supremely conditioned. He's always one of the last guys on the ice after practice. I mean, he is driven and has a lot of talent. I mean, when he's healthy, he can be a really dynamic offensive player. Certainly was one of the best skaters on the Rangers in his time here. Brings a really impressive speed element, I think, that the team, quite frankly, otherwise was lacking in a lot of spots. And I know that's what Vancouver was probably hoping to get from him as well. But it did feel like he always kind of had this black cloud over him. And you knew that if he took a hit in a vulnerable area, that his chances of sustaining a head injury because of his history are higher than the average player. And I think that's why when the Rangers saw an opportunity, as much as they like the player when he's healthy, when they saw an opportunity to move on and kind of limit their risk moving forward and get a player like Miller, who again moved them in more of that tough, hard-nosed, gritty, straight-ahead direction that they want to go toward, I think they jumped on that opportunity. It's, again, nothing against Chytil personally, nothing against his work ethic, nothing against the player. It's just there's a very clear risk. And now that he's had another concussion, by my count, that would be at least 5 concussions in his still relatively young career. So there's definitely a history of head injuries there that has to give you some concern moving forward.
All right, the other player the Canucks got, Victor Mancini, he hasn't played the last couple of games, but when he did play, the Canucks really liked this guy. What can you tell us about Mancini and his time in New York?
Physical tools are there. big, strong kid, a lot of reach. He can be effective with the stick. The skating has really come a long way, in my estimation, and just from talking to scouts and people that coached him at the college level. I spent some time in the preseason and wrote a pretty lengthy feature on him just because he was a standout at Rangers training camp. Really came out of nowhere. I had heard that the Rangers were increasingly high on him, but certainly did not think that he was going to be in the NHL mix for them this season. I still think he's a little rough around the edges. I still think that there's some rawness there that needs to be developed. But just in terms of the physical traits, is a lot to like about him. And he does seem to be a kid with a pretty good head on his shoulders, with a good work ethic, who I know impressed a lot of people in the organization here in New York, and obviously became somebody who was pretty coveted around the league, because my understanding is that was an important part for the Canucks. It sounds like they really wanted him included in that deal, and they were able to get him. And now it looks like, he has a chance to be a player for them. So definitely a late bloomer, a guy who, wasn't drafted his first couple years of eligibility. I don't think was viewed as much of a prospect for a number of years, but has come on really, really strong. And again, when you're talking about the physical attributes, the size, the length, the skating, which has really come a long way, definitely brings some physicality. There are things to like about his game where I think he definitely projects, if he can develop more and process more and kind of get, the understanding of the game down better and how to defend properly at this level, there's definitely, I think, is a real chance for him to stick.
Okay, and Vince, 11 seconds or less. If the Rangers don't make the playoffs, who gets the blame? Laviolette?
Probably he'll be the first one to fall on the sword, but I think there's a lot of blame to go around. We'd have to go a lot longer than 11 seconds for me to break that one down.
I'm sure Drury would get some blame as well. Vince, this has been outstanding. Work on that microphone for us. You can use that microphone you got right now. Look at the size of that thing. Put that outside the restaurant. It'll pick up everything.
Come on. Get us names.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
I got to find out what restaurant.
Okay, There you go. Get on it. All right, Vince, appreciate it, my friend. We'll get you back. Appreciate it.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.